Hey guys, so I wanted to discuss today a fix for foot placement in the GASP project. This character I have here is just a retargeted character to the UEFN mannequin, and with this guy, there is a node in the anim graph called foot placement, and if I just remove this for now, um, if I keep the default settings that are held inside the foot placement node, you'll see there's some offsets, linear stiffness, interpolation, and there's a couple other important settings down here that I'll get to. With it default, if I'm running up and down steep inclines, it does some really weird stuff with the foot placement. But a lot of the settings in foot placement, um, even I'm getting some weird things. That might be something else I did though. Um, so with foot placement, you can see there's a little bit of back and forth movement to his pelvis when he's pivoting, which is important, and it's a big part of part of the cool features that foot placement has to offer. And that's the reason you get that nice movement. So I have noticed some temporary fixes on YouTube for just changing the movement compensation mode to component space, but there is some issues with this. It's not really a fix, in my opinion, because you'll see now if I'm trying to pivot back and forth. Um, right here. Oh, it's not doing it now. That is odd. Um, Weird. Okay, that actually seems to be working not bad. You do get a bit of jitteriness in this though. Before I was getting some issues where the hip wasn't even um, able to go left or right. It would kind of just yeah, he wouldn't have any lean to his pivot movement. So that seems to be not the issue, which is weird. I was getting that before. But my best option for fixing this and handling it between different states is kind of matching what they did for the foot placement plant settings. And this is kind of what I recommend everyone do with this system because it just opens up more opportunities for you to be able to adjust these settings based on the state that your character's in. So I've made a function, which some important things to note about these functions for these nodes is they do need to have under the advanced section, they do need to be thread safe, and the output name has to be return value. If it's not return value, then it will not work with thread safe functions, and it should be pure in this case. And in most cases for thread safe functions. So what I've done in here is I have different pelvis settings, which is a structure foot placement pelvis settings similar to their already kept structures for plant settings. So they have plant settings default and stops. I should probably have one for stops as well. Um, that way I can maybe fool around with trying to figure out the issues I was having with pivoting back and forth. But what I've kind of done here is played around with a few different settings. So I have the default settings, which are directly from the default settings they had in the gas project, and then sorry, I have some additional settings for sprinting, which right now are just the same. But for some of the sprinting, what I was doing is turning down the linear stiffness to allow it to pivot back and forth a bit. And with the stairs, so this is where it gets a little interesting. So I have in my sandbox character blueprint, I have a function which I run off of pre-CMC tick. So this is already existent, and I have an additional function called update floor data. And all it does is from the character movement. I get the current floor, which is a structure held inside character movement. There is a specific thing you have to turn on for this to work, which is its floor. Use flat base for floor checks is something that you need to have on in order for this to work. So rather than tracing down for the floor, the character movement already keeps track of that kind of stuff. If it's a walkable floor surface, then what I do is I get the hit result. I store physical surfaces for footstep sounds and stuff like that. And then I check the tags, and all I do is anything with stairs, I give it a tag stairs in as its first component tag, and it will enable this bool on my character if I'm walking on stairs. So if I um, just click on this guy here, you can see all I've done is add a tag of stairs, and now if I walk up, it's going to set that bool as true, just like so. So with that bool true, it will use my pelvis settings for the stairs, which I have a couple things that I've fooled around with to continue to maintain the uh, the the foot plant on the stairs so that he doesn't sink through, but also to get rid of this jitteriness that you get from enabling simple component space. So rather than using this, which I'll set back to default, so I get those or lose them, I will bind my function, get foot placement pelvis settings. And with that now, what it will do is, I guess it won't show the execution pin, but it acts a little bit differently. So you can see, you can play around with a lot of the settings to kind of get the movement that you need based on your stairs and your incline and stuff like that. And these stairs are not a ramp like they should be. My preferred method of creating stairs is actually not like that, but just to have it a straight ramp so that there's no jitteriness. Which, if you were just in component space like I was before, then the ramp would also get rid of that jitteriness. But in the case where you do have collision like this, then foot placement's a perfect way to handle that because you don't get that jumping around. So my settings for stairs, I have a max offset of 50, which I could bring that up to like 100. My linear stiffness is 5,000, and I have my pelvis height mode set to foot planted, feet uphill, front feet downhill, which says when moving uphill, use only the front foot as long as it's planted. It's recommended to also enable pelvis interpolation to smooth out the swap between what's considered the plant leg when moving downhill. Both feet will be considered relevant. The algorithm tends to prefer the lower foot, except when the higher foot would become overcompensated. So I found this to be the best setting for stairs, and it kind of gets the smoothest interpolation. And the stiffness is really nice to prevent it from falling through the stairs. And paired with those two options, if I were to set the linear stiffness back to 100, I still sink through. But the feet try to handle themselves. You can see the heels kind of still sticking around. So, except for when you're going down really fast. So I found the linear stiffness. If I crank that up, I had it set to 5,000, but let's go up to like 25,000 and see what it does, just for the hell of it. So with 25,000, you get a little bit of a jump from the character, I found. Um, and my legs, keep in mind, my legs are really long on this robot guy. I had to adjust the retargeter actually to compensate for the leg length. So it might be a little bit different than the results you'll get with the regular UEFN mannequin. So with that, about 7,500, and I'm sprinting right now. You get a little bit of jumpiness, but don't get any of that camera jitteriness. And um, yeah, my legs being really long also take a huge toll on the way that he's hopping up the stairs. So I'll continue to fool around with this, and I'm sure um, just based off of making a function like this and having different settings for if you're on stairs, sprinting or running or walking or whatever you need, um, will give you a lot more customization and options with the system, and it'll allow you to fool around with these values and kind of see the results that you'll get um, out of him walking up and down some stairs.